welcome back to the Knitted by Whitney YouTube channel. And goodbye to Bennett, I think. I think he wants out, so just give me a minute. All right, taking care of that. Once again, welcome back to the Knitted by Whitney YouTube channel. It has been quite a while since my last video, and it has been even longer since my last podcast episode because I've been a little busy getting married. Doyle and I got married earlier this month, and it was everything we wanted and more. But before I get into talking about the wedding and talking about my finished object that I'm here to talk about, let's get started with the mug of the episode. Fittingly, I have a new mug. I got this mug in this really cool gift basket that was gifted to us for the wedding, and there was also a Mr. mug as well. So Doyle and I will now have some matching mugs. Today I'm drinking my favorite chai tea, which is by Tazo. So cheers. And yes, it is a large mug of tea because we've got a lot to talk about today. I have been away from YouTube for a little while because I'm going to be honest, the wedding stress got to me. I can honestly say that wedding planning is not something that I enjoyed doing. However, it was all worth it by the end, and we were enjoying our wedding day. Everything was exactly how we wanted, and it was just this really wonderful celebration of our love and getting to see lots of family and friends together. So it really was spectacular, but the planning part was not. I even posted on my Instagram, I think it was the Monday of our wedding week, saying that I had a breakdown that morning. I have cried a lot leading up to our wedding, and I cried a lot on the day too, but those are happy tears. I'm just a crier. I cry at everything. I cry at movies. I cry at greeting cards. I even cry at commercials sometimes. I'm just a crier. My whole family are criers, so it wasn't really my choice. I kind of inherited the cryingness. But yes, leading up to the wedding, I was getting quite stressed, and one of the things that I took off of my plate to make me less stressed was I took away the need to record videos prior to the wedding. I did a little announcement here on YouTube letting everybody know that there wouldn't be a video until after the wedding. So now it's after the wedding, and basically after we had our rehearsal, all of my stress immediately vanished, and other than like little wedding day jitters before Doyle and I got to see each other, I was surprisingly chill for the last day or two, and then the day of the wedding. I remember being really, really surprised that I was sitting and getting my hair done and being super, super relaxed, but as I might show in a photo here, it depends on if I feel like I want to show that photo or not, I was actually knitting on the morning of my wedding, and a lot of my non-knitting family probably thought it was weird, but honestly, knitting is such a stress reliever for me that getting to just work a little bit on a small project really kind of helped keep my nerves at bay and help me feel really calm and relaxed because, just doing a few stitches here and there, it does a lot to get my mind off things and just pause and just be in the rhythm of the stitches. So I was actually knitting on my wedding day. I know I'm not the only knitting podcaster who has knitted on their wedding day. I remember Caroline of Caroline's Knits posting after her wedding saying that she was also knitting on her wedding morning, and it just kind of helps keep the stress at bay. So that was something I did on my wedding day. Now, while I talk a bit about our wedding and about my cardigan and all of that jazz, I may put some photos in here. I haven't yet decided how much I am comfortable sharing with everybody, but I will share photos of myself on the wedding day because I'm okay with sharing those. It's just I have to ask permission from Doyle and our wedding party and such before I share any photos that include other people. Because I have quite a big following and not everybody is comfortable with having their image really out there, so I wanted to make sure I get their permission before I share anything. So there may be some photos, there may not. It is all down to editing Whitney to put those in and get everything done. So yes, we got married just at the beginning of October, and we had absolutely perfect weather. Here in Nova Scotia, October can be a really up and down month when it comes to temperature, and we really lucked out. Our day, it was 23 degrees Celsius, which is not typical for October. In fact, we were hitting record highs that week of high temperatures in the province, and we also lucked out with it being kind of a mix of a sun and cloud day, so there wasn't really glaring sun that was in the way for photos, so you wouldn't have like a lot of shadows and everything. But there was enough sun that when we took our photos in the park nearby our wedding venue, that the sun was just sort of like beaming in through the trees, and with the leaves diffusing it, it just looked so beautiful. Very ethereal, very enchanted foresty, if you will. That was kind of our wedding theme, was enchanted forest. Not like directly where like we had fairies everywhere, but we did have a lot of fairy lights because I was very into fairy lights. I love the really pretty calmness and romanticism of them, so our decor had a lot of fairy lights. But yeah, it was great weather, and we had just a wonderful, wonderful day. I know both Doyle and I were feeling kind of nervous when we were doing our first look, but if you are getting married and you are considering whether or not to do a first look, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It was one of the best things that we did all day, and it's actually one of our favorite moments from the day because we got to see each other and dispel all of our nerves. We got to have that really emotional moment of seeing each other for the first time with only a couple people around. We had our attendants, so I had a maid of honor and Doyle had a best man, but otherwise we didn't have any other wedding party members, and our two photographers. And that was it. So it was really nice to have that moment be more personal and be more private, and we could just let all of our emotions out, and that kind of really helped us feel like we're in this together and we can face the rest of the wedding day together. I know both of us were feeling kind of nervous about the ceremony because that part is also all eyes on you, and you know, we kind of felt nervous about that. But after we had our first look and we were able to relax together and have our wedding party photos and our couple photos done prior to the ceremony, it was really kind of nice to then just feel like we're in this together and we're feeling more relaxed. We're kind of like feeling more playful and just really chill and comfortable, and it really made a difference for us. And it also meant that our guests didn't have to figure out what to do with themselves in between the ceremony and the reception, because we went right from the ceremony to the reception. We did take a few photos in between so that we could still take photos at our ceremony location. But other than, it was only like maybe 20 minutes that our guests were kind of like milling around, and they were just kind of talking amongst themselves, and they were meeting other people at the wedding, and then they went up to the venue to get their seats while we did a few last minute photos, and then we did our grand entrance, which was not very grand. We were just announced as Mr. and Mrs. and then walked into the room. We are very chill and relaxed people, so our wedding was pretty chill and relaxed. We didn't do anything spectacular. But we did do one thing that I highly, highly, highly recommend, even more so than a first look. I recommend this. I found this maybe a couple of weeks before our wedding, and I saw it on Instagram. It was a video of a couple that had set up a photo location at their wedding reception where the couple was sitting on chairs and they had all of their guests file behind them, and they had their photographer take pictures of those guests with the couple as they were going through. So it allows you to get photos with every single one of your guests in one go. And it made it so helpful to us because we made sure that we would get photos with everybody that we wanted at the wedding, and it only took I think 10 minutes, maybe 15 if I'm really stretching it. But it was so helpful, and although we haven't received our photos from our photographer yet, we've only gotten our preview photos so far, which are amazing. She was worth every single penny, and our photos are absolutely gorgeous. I love them so much. But I just know when we get those photos back as well, they're just going to be a hoot, because some people just did basic standing there looking pretty, which was fine by me, totally great. But a lot of our guests wanted to do something silly, and I think we're going to love those photos a lot. A lot of people wanted to sit on Doyle's lap. He doesn't really look like Santa, but I guess a lot of people wanted to sit on his lap and ask for presents for this year. So that was really cute. And, you know, some people kind of like squished our faces together, or they kissed our cheeks, and it was just so wonderful. And I feel like it also helped people really relax too, because they know they've gotten their photo with the bride and the groom. They don't need to worry about trying to corner us later on to try and get a photo. We've already got that. So it took a lot of the stress out of trying to get photos with guests. So again, I highly, highly, highly recommend that. It was brilliant. Our photographer loved that idea too, because it meant that she didn't have to go chasing people down either. We didn't have to provide a really long list for her of all the people we wanted photos with. So it just made everybody's day a little easier. So that was a really great thing that we did. So after the wedding, Doyle and I were chatting about our favorite moments of the wedding, and we both kind of came to the same conclusion. Yes, we have favorite moments from the wedding, but there were no bad moments whatsoever. And that really made us feel really good, because it meant that we got the day that we wanted, and we were happy the whole time. We got to socialize with some people that we don't get to see all the time, because we had some people visiting. We did have a few people not be able to show for various reasons, so it was a little sad to miss out on those people, but the people who were at the wedding were just a ball. We had so much fun, and it was really great to see all of the important people in our lives there to help celebrate our love. So let's talk about my finished object, which is the Romance Cardigan by Tricot Designs MCL, otherwise known as Marie-Christine Levesque. And she is a knitwear designer based out of New Brunswick, which is the province right next to mine. I'm in Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick is the next province over. So I absolutely love that I knitted a design by a local to me designer. I have already shown this as a finished object, because I did a vlog about this, and I posted that back in early August. And I did really show it off then, but I didn't talk about it in that video, because I knew I wanted to do a separate podcast video about that sweater. And I am kind of doing this podcast episode about both my version and the green version that I knitted for my maid of honor. And I don't have that one with me because she has it. And she told me the other day that she has worn it several times since the wedding, and that just makes my heart feel so full. I am so happy that she loves it, because as other knitters know, not everybody likes the things that you make them. So it's really, really special to me that she loves it, and that she has indeed worn it more than just the wedding. So when I showed it in the vlog, it wasn't quite done, because I had done all of the knitting portions, but there is a slight crochet element to this sweater. It is, of course, this crocheted scalloped border, and I don't crochet, but my best friend / maid of honor is learning how to crochet, and she offered to do the crocheted edging on the sweater. And as a beginner crocheter, she was absolutely able to do this, so it is quite a beginner-friendly technique. Now, the only problem with following the crochet technique is that the video Marie includes in the pattern is, of course, in French, because Marie is French, so it was a little difficult for my maid of honor to follow. So this is not perfectly accurate according to the pattern video tutorial, but it looks pretty much identical to the sample photo of the cardigan. So I'm very, very happy with it. I absolutely love it. I love that it's shallow scallops because to me that just looks really, really refined. When my maid of honor was first trying it, she did bigger scallops that were similar to an English tutorial that I found for her, and they just didn't look right. So she did end up having to do it a second time, which she thankfully didn't mind doing, and this is just absolute perfection. I love it so, so much. So, what shall we talk about first with this sweater? Let's talk about the yarn first. I chose to knit this out of Drops Brushed Alpaca Silk, which I purchased off of Etsy. It's not widely available here in Canada. It is easier to get over in the UK. And there are a number of UK stockists that have it, that do ship to Canada. I know knit.co.uk carries this. I'm not quite sure what colors she currently has, but that is one place that you can buy it. But I wanted to make sure that I got everything that I needed, and I ended up finding a good number of them on Etsy, so that's where I happened to buy it from. I bought the color Off-White, and I bought it after I had already got my wedding dress. And I just kind of hoped that they would match. I am very pale with a rosy complexion, and I know I cannot wear pure white. It just does not look good on me. So I bought a cream wedding dress, or ivory, all those weird off-white color names. And when the yarn arrived, I put a ball of it on the dress. Like, I just laid the dress out and I put a ball of yarn on top of it. If the ball band hadn't have been on the yarn, I probably wouldn't have been able to find the yarn because it was that perfect of a match. I was stunned. I was so, so happy about that. And I did over order with my amount of yarn, so I do have quite a bit left over. So I'm going to use it for a future project, which I'll talk about in a future video. But I could not believe how perfect the color was, and I was very, very happy about that. The other detail on this sweater, which I will now stand up to show you, are the buttons. I got some very special buttons for this cardigan. These buttons are by Fable Knitwear, who also does yarn and patterns. Although I've talked about how her patterns don't always fit me, but I knew I wanted to use some buttons that she sells because she does a lot of vintage inspired buttons, and I knew with the color of my yarn and the style of cardigan that I wanted to go with, I knew I wanted something vintagey because my dress looks kind of vintagey. So I ended up buying some Fable Knitwear's buttons, and until recently she was on maternity leave and her shop was closed, but she is now back. So if you too would like some of these buttons, I will link them in the description notes below and you can check them out. The only bad side about these buttons is that I don't think I chose the right size for my cardigan, and that's entirely my fault because I didn't really pay attention to what the pattern said. I just knew I wanted to use these buttons. So the buttonholes I have stretched out because the buttons are shank buttons, which means that it is just a decorative button head, and then there's the loop on the back that you sew on. It's not like a button with holes through it. And because it is a diamond shape with a small shank, the buttonhole has to stretch to accommodate that big diamond-shaped button, and then the hole is just loose over the shank portion, so they often come apart like that. So it's a minor inconvenience. I don't know yet if I'm going to wear this cardigan open ever, or if it might be something that I only wear closed. So I haven't decided yet if I want to sew up the buttonholes to make them a little smaller, or in fact just like sew up the whole front button band and have this more as like a layer that I put on that's always closed. So I'm going to give it some time, and I'm going to see if I do in fact want to wear it open at any time. I'm planning on wearing it to work tomorrow, so I can give it a bit of a drive-by there and check it out, see how I like it. But yeah, I might fix it in the future. I do know I want to keep these buttons on. I absolutely love these buttons. But when I make this pattern again in the future, I will use different size buttons because I made a mistake. But it's okay because it's what I really wanted for this sweater, and it just makes me so happy. So this is actually the first pattern by Marie-Christine Levesque that I have ever knitted. And I think I mentioned in my vlog on this sweater that it took a lot of searching to find a pattern that I was really happy with to go with my wedding dress. And I have to say, this has got to be one of the best patterns that I have ever knitted fit-wise. I know it has stretched a bit because I've been moving around a lot in it, and as you've just seen me do, I tend to stretch it out and put the sleeves over my hands, which is something that I do for comfort. That's one of my little idiosyncrasies. I know Laura from Penrose Knits does the same thing. She likes to pull her sleeves over her hands. But yeah, it just makes me feel cozy. So I have actually kind of stretched it out by doing that. But if I leave the sleeves just at my wrists where they're supposed to, it does fit a bit better. It doesn't look as stretched, but it is one of the best fitting garments that I've ever made for myself, and I absolutely love it. It is a size inclusive pattern, of course, which is kind of my ethos around here, and I absolutely love how perfect the fit is, because this pattern uses techniques that I haven't done before. So it starts at the top. You start with knitting the back portion, and then you pick up each cardigan front until you get to the the bust point, and then you join them together into one, so you have an armhole that you then need to pick up and knit your sleeve down, as well as knitting the rest of the body down, and then picking up the button band and doing the button band around the collar and the front, as well as ribbing at the bottom. And I have to say, I am blown away by some of the techniques that I learned in this sweater. I have never done a sleeve cap before because, as you can tell, this is a bit of an inset sleeve, and oh my goodness gracious, the fit on these sleeves is amazing. I absolutely love it. One of the things that bothers me about sleeves where you just pick up and start knitting is that if you're starting on your sweater going sideways like this, you are really kind of, if your arm is straight out, your sleeve is going to look straight and even on both sides. But as soon as you put your arm down, one side is going to be shorter than the other because you haven't added extra stitches here. So it would be like if it was pulled up here, and then it's not quite even. So that's a little nitpicky thing that I don't like about some sweaters. But this one adds a sleeve cap, and I loved that so much. And I really loved working that too. It was really enjoyable to knit. And then by the time you start doing your sleeve in the round, you've already got pretty much this whole section of your sleeve done, so the sleeve goes by faster. So if you're one of those people that doesn't like being on Sleeve Island, this might be something that you enjoy. I did make 2 modifications to the pattern. One, of course, was the sleeves, which you'll notice I have this lovely delicate little I-cord cuff. And the reason I did an I-cord cuff instead of the ribbed cuff was that I just really wanted this to look very delicate and feminine and more of a fancy occasion wear piece than just a basic bishop sleeve that then had a big ribbed cuff. I didn't think that would look as nice and delicate with my wedding dress. So that's why I chose to do that, and I did that on my best friend's version as well. And I wouldn't have known to do that unless I had done the Augustine's number 21 sweater dress that I did the other year, a couple years ago. And I just really love how delicate an I-cord cuff looks, especially paired with a big balloon sleeve. I just think it brings it in so nicely and so delicately, and it looks so beautiful with my dress. The other modification that I made is that I made it shorter. So the cardigan is actually supposed to go down to your hips, but I wanted mine to stop at the waistline of my wedding dress. And I got it spot on. So I was, of course, trying it on as I was knitting it, and I wanted to stop 2 inches before the waist of my wedding dress because you need to do 2 inches of ribbing, and it happens to sit exactly at my natural waist, and on the dress it just looks absolutely perfect, which means it is going to look really, really nice over my skirts because it'll come right in at the top of the skirt rather than be a little too long and kind of flare out. I notice that happens sometimes when I wear longer cardigans with my skirts and dresses, is that the bottoms start to flare out because the skirt flares out. I wear a lot of A-line skirts, but this one is going to sit like right there, right at the top, and it's just going to look so beautiful. I'm really excited about that. But yeah, those were the 2 modifications that I made. Everything else I did to the letter, exactly as the pattern had written, and I loved it. I loved knitting this pattern. It was a really enjoyable thing to knit. I will say, having to do a second one immediately after, I was getting a little worn down by it, especially when I got to the end of the body and the sleeves of my best friend's version, because I had knit this for so long, and the body is done flat because it's a cardigan, so you're doing you're doing a knit row and then a purl row, and knit row and a purl row. But even I found the sleeves, I was getting kind of like so ready for them to be done. But that in no way dampened my love of the pattern. I really, really loved it. And I am actually planning to knit this pattern again. I know, I don't often do that, but I am definitely going to knit this one again. So when it comes to the fit of this sweater, it fit me perfectly as a plus size person. I have either a 50 or a 51 inch bust, and I chose to knit, the size was 2XL, but I can't remember if that was like the 5th or the 6th size in the list. But it was like, I think the bust size for that one was 52 inches, so I only have like an inch or 2 of positive ease. It has stretched out a bit more, but in general it is a nice neutral eased garment. We chose sort of a similarly matched size for my best friend. I forget what her bust measurement is, but the one that we chose for her, I think it was exactly neutral ease for her for the bust size, and it fits her like a glove. So Marie has definitely done her homework with grading her pattern very, very well to fit a variety of sizes. So my friend is a straight size person, and hers fits her to a T. I am a plus size person, and mine fits me to a T. So I absolutely love that it worked out so well for both of us. My friends, I did also make a little shorter. So because I wasn't following the pattern instructions for the length, I sort of guessed the difference between hers and mine based on what the difference would be if we had knit the full size. So I think hers ended up being maybe an inch or half an inch shorter than mine. And I also did her sleeves slightly shorter. But they look beautiful on both of us. They fit both of us perfectly, and we both love them so much. The only other change with my best friend's version is that she decided not to do the crocheted edging on hers. It's not really her style. She's more of a plain, clean cut kind of cardigan wearer, and she knew that she would get more versatility out of it without the added crocheted edging. So totally fine that our cardigans looked slightly different, and I just think it really elevated mine as the bridal version to have the crocheted edging. So I have already answered this question, but will I knit this pattern again? The answer is a resounding yes. I love this pattern as a very basic DK weight pattern. There are 2 sleeve options for this pattern. I chose to do the balloon sleeve for my wedding cardigan. I'll probably do the tapered sleeve next, just because the yarn that I want to use for it, I don't have quite enough. So I'm going to try and like save a bit of yarn by doing tapered sleeves instead of balloon sleeves. But I have some yarn already that I'm going to pop a picture of right here because I bought this yarn on our honeymoon. Doyle and I went on a little honeymoon to our favorite Airbnb spot immediately after the wedding, and it's just a really cozy and relaxing place in the woods, and we love it so much because whenever we go there, we turn our phones off, we get a lot of reading done, I get a lot of knitting done, we have a fire, they have a hot tub, we play lots of games, and we do lots of cooking, and it's just a really great place for us to completely unwind. And this time of year, the colors were phenomenal. Oh my gosh, it was so beautiful. Because we were there for so long, we went for about 5 days. We also took some time to do a little hike nearby, and that was such a treat. It was beautiful weather, and the colors were stunning, and we just got to be in the leaves and smell the autumn smells, and it was just wonderful. So while we were on our little honeymoon, when we were on our way back, we dropped by one of the towns, and there happened to be a yarn store. I will say that Doyle really encouraged me to go to a yarn store, and that was because he wanted to go to a hobby store in the town, so he got to look at things that he was interested in only if I got to look at things that I was interested in. He really wanted it to be fair. He didn't want to drag me to the hobby store and he look at stuff that was interesting for him, but then we not do something for me as well. So I kind of got pushed to go into the yarn store. Which, you know, of course I went willingly anyway, but I did buy some yarn while we were there, and I'm going to use that yarn to make another romance cardigan. But it is going to look pretty different because instead of being the very lofty and light and airy brushed alpaca, it's just going to be a wool. Just going to be wool. But one of the things that I really love about the romance cardigan is its versatility, and I love the style and shaping of it. I really like to wear V-neck cardigans. I find that those suit my preference better because I don't always wear my cardigans closed like I have right now. So if it's just a crew neck style, if I have part of it open, it's just kind of like flapping right here, and that feels kind of weird. So I really prefer to wear V-neck cardigans, and I also find that they suit my face better, and a lot of my t-shirts and my tank tops are all V-necks, so I want to match the neck of my cardigan to the neck of what I'm wearing underneath it. So that's what I'm going to be using to knit my next one. And I think I'm going to keep this cardigan pattern kind of like in my back pocket anytime I want to buy some yarn and make a staple piece in my wardrobe. And I just think I should stick with something that I know and love, that I get a great fit out of, that I really enjoy following the pattern, and that I know delivers beautiful results. So you would think, because it's been quite a while since my last podcast episode, that I would have a stack of books this high to talk to you about. Well, I do and I don't. On the one hand, I did a lot of stress reading leading up to the wedding, but I read a lot of library books, so I don't have the books with me. So those ones I'll talk about in an upcoming episode, but for now I'll talk about the 2 physical books that I read since my last podcast episode. The first one is Bet on It by Jody Slaughter. And this one was gifted to me by Doyle in our monthly book exchange. And this one we exchanged for August. So I started reading this one when we were away. We went to Quebec City over Labor Day weekend, which is the first weekend in September. I had originally taken Fourth Wing with me, which I had caved to the hype, and I bought, and I did not finish. I stopped reading it at around 80 pages in. I know it's super popular. I know a lot of people talk about it, but it was just not for me. I really didn't enjoy it. It was just too violent. I really didn't like the characters at all, and I didn't really care for the world. And I also found that it was really predictable. Like, I could already tell what was going to happen by the end of the book. And when I looked up what did happen at the end of the book, because obviously I had to know, it was exactly what I thought was going to happen. So I just am glad that I didn't bother to keep going with that book. Unfortunately, I now own it, and I bought it at full price, hardcover. Oh well, live and learn. But because I had taken that book away with me to Quebec, expecting to read that while we were on our trip, I had also taken bet on it because, well, I'd taken a book that was wrapped because we were going to be away on the 1st, and we open our books on the 1st of each month. So when I opened this book and I already knew that I was struggling with Fourth Wing, I dropped Fourth Wing and I started reading this book, which it's cute. It really is a cute story, but I didn't like how present the anxiety of each character was in this book. I swear I could have made a mint by taking $1 every time they said, oh, I didn't do this because I was anxious, or I was feeling this way because of my anxiety, or my therapist said that I should do this, or I'm going to talk about this in therapy. And I'm in no way bashing on talking about mental health issues, especially in mainstream media such as books, movies, TV. It was just too repetitive. I'm not bashing it because it was talking about mental health. I'm bashing it because it was repetitive. It really needed to scale back a bit. That was like my biggest critique of this book. The other one was that they just weren't really interesting characters. Like, they were just kind of meh. So, cute story and everything. The whole, like, they met at bingo, like, it's not really something that you read in a romance novel all the time. I did love that it was an interracial couple. That was a great thing to read. I don't read enough about that. So it was great representation. But honestly, it was a middle of the road, 3 stars. It's cute if you like romance novels and you just want something fun and light to read. Recommend, but otherwise it was just kind of meh. Now my second book that I have to talk about, I thought I would have more of a glowing review of, because it is the most recent book in the Blood and Ash series, A Soul of Ash and Blood by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Now, I absolutely love this series. It's a wonderful, wonderful series, especially if you're into ACOTAR or Throne of Glass or The Crowns of Nyaxia, like any of those types of fantasy series. But the thing was, this one just felt like a cash grab. So the premise of this is, it is the point of view of the male love interest in the first book, from Blood and Ash. So the main characters are Poppy and Hawk. And in the first book, you get Poppy's point of view because the whole series is from Poppy's point of view. The purpose of this one, A Soul of Ash and Blood, which it's got the flipped title, so makes sense that it's the flipped POV. I remember when I read that this book was coming, I already kind of thought, oh, that's going to be a cash grab, isn't it? But the day that it came out, what did I go and buy? This book. And, it's not a light book. It's not a small book. And I thought there would be some interesting tidbits, and there are, but there's not enough to make it really exciting for me. So this one was also a 3-star. And I feel kind of bad because I do love this series and I love these characters, but you don't really get anything new. Not really when you think about it. You just sort of get more background explanation, and there are some current things that are happening, so like things post book 4, which was the War of Two Queens, but in general most of it is set in the time of the first book. So it really was just bonus content put together for a book with a sliver of a plot tying it all together. So not super thrilled with this one. I'm more excited for the third book in the prequel series, which I think the book coming out is called A Fire in the Flesh. and that one is the third book in the prequel series featuring Niktos and Sarah. So that one comes out on Halloween, and I am actually really, really stoked for that one because I really want to know what happens next in their story, because their story is currently in the midst of like all kinds of stuff happening. So I'm very excited to read that one. But this one, just kind of a mad book again. So it kind of sucks that both of my books this podcast were not that great, but that's what happens when you read. You don't always love everything that you read, and sometimes things are amazing and sometimes things are just meh. But I like to provide honest reviews of what I read, and I try to keep things spoiler free as well, especially if it's about a popular series that a lot of people are reading or something that is really out there in pop culture that people are interested in. I like to keep things spoiler free. So there are my book reviews of this episode. And that, of course, wraps up this long-awaited podcast episode. This is also the last episode in my Knitted Wedding series. I thought there would be another episode because I thought I would also be talking about the pocket square that I knitted for Doyle. But as you can probably guess, the pocket square didn't work out. So that got tossed to the curb. We got Doyle just a normal pocket square. So that wraps up my Knitted Wedding series as well. I hope you really enjoyed watching the series of me knitting items for various parts of my wedding. And I, of course, didn't manage to get everything knitted that I thought I was going to, but I'm very, very happy with what I did get knitted, and I feel very, very proud of what I was able to do for the wedding, and I am very, very happy that I managed to have knitwear be a part of this very special day of my life, and I really wanted to have something to wear. I was never into knitted shawls. They're not really my thing, so I never wanted a wedding shawl. But I feel like a wedding cardigan is perfect because, especially because we were getting married in October, it can be chilly. Wasn't that day, so we didn't need them. But I really wanted to have this layering piece for if it was really chilly. And I know that when I wear my hand knits, I just feel really, really confident in myself and my appearance. And it just made me feel extra special on my wedding day. And one of the bonuses of knitting a cardigan, which is, something that I wear quite a lot in my day-to-day life, is that I will now get to relive the day of my wedding anytime I wear this cardigan. So that's really, really special to me. And I'm very excited to have all of those memories come back every time I put on this cardigan. I hope you all enjoyed this podcast episode. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining me. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate it. While you're here, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and if you want to, check out some of my other videos. I mainly do podcast episodes as well as pattern roundups, but there are, of course, other special videos as well. So take a look around and see if there's something that you might like to watch. I hope you all take care and happy knitting!